Hello viewers, this is the part 8 of the series named Mastering OEM, and today we are going to learn about features available in OEM 13.5 through different menu items in the OEM console. In the last couple of tutorials, we installed OEM 13.5, configured a few database targets, and also learned a few useful OMS and agent-side commands. I suggest you watch the previous tutorials in this series first to get a better understanding on today's tutorial. So today we will navigate through the OEM console menus, and I will briefly explain the features and options available to us. So you have already seen the OEM 13.5 console, and there are quite a few of the menus and individual menu items under them. Before we proceed further on using OEM features, setup, monitoring, etc., it is time for us to understand what are the features and options available to us from OEM, so we don't have to fumble when it's time to use certain features or have OEM work for us. In the OEM console, there are mainly two sets of menus. The first set of menus belongs to the OEM itself, which we will call as main menu, which is visible in the top right corner of the console. And the second set of menu is available when we will go to a particular target. Say for example, if we go to a database target, and if we click on the database target, it will first take us to the home page of the database target, and there is another set of menu available to us in the top left corner, and this menu is called the target menu. So first we will discuss about the main menu and individual items under them. I log into my OEM system using the SYSMAN user, which is the super user of the OEM system, and the reason behind is so I don't have to face any privilege issues while accessing the menu items or features. So first we'll discuss about the main menu. Please note that this is going to be an overview of the menu items. We will go deeper into the items when we will actually cover the features they represent in the coming tutorials, and we will talk on the items which will be most useful for us while working with OEM. But don't worry, I will have separate videos to cover those topics which we skip in this series. So first, let's start with the enterprise menu. So the first item is the summary, and this gives this page which is currently visible here, and it has a lot of sections there. The first one is an overview. This is a graphical representation of the different targets available and their status. For example, I have 34 targets up and 3 targets in down state. And if there are other status like unknown or unreachable or unconfigured, then those statuses will also be available in this particular block. And also the next section is the incidents, that is different things happening in the targets, like in the last 24 hours, in the last 7 days, etc. and the categorization of those incidents, like availability type, performance type, security type, and other types, and what are the different problems and the different jobs ran in the last specific period. And towards the right, we have an option to see the inventory, and this drop down will give us options to filter out the specific type of targets that we are interested in. For example, if we just want to see the database installations, then we can select that particular filter option here, and that will give us all the database installations available to us in the OEM system. Currently we have only 19c database installations available. That is the 100% of our database installations. Then there is a compliance summary available. So this is one topic that I will explain later on, and this is nothing but the compliance and the standards and policies that you follow in your organization, and this compliance summary will be based on how you set up this particular feature. And also if there are any patch recommendations, then OEM will tell you that. The second thing is the monitoring. Under monitoring, there are again submenus like incident manager, logs, blackouts, corrective actions, metric extensions, monitoring templates, and template collection. Incident manager under monitoring. So incident manager gives you an overview of all the incidents happening across all the different types of targets in your OEM system. For example, I can see 3 different incidents shown here, and when that happened, and on which particular target that happened, and what is the current status, and what category that particular incident is belonging to. All this information you can see here, and you also have the filtering options here. For example, if you see the top one of my database that has crossed the recovery area uses, and that was at 96%, and that created an incident, and we can see that incident here. Next one, the logs. The logs, as the name implies, it will give you the incident logs, and you can search the logs based on different search criteria, and you can also show them in different groups, like groups by user, groups by target, group by host, etc. Right now our OEM system doesn't have any logs because it's just the beginning. The next menu item under monitoring is the blackouts. So what is a blackout? A blackout is a period within which the notifications and alerts will not be triggered for a particular target. For example, suppose you are patching one server, and during that you want to bring down the database instance. So obviously you don't want any alerts to be triggered saying that your database is down during that period. So you will put that database target or the host target under blackout. Right now we don't have any targets under blackout. Next is the corrective action. So what is a corrective action? So corrective action is an action which is taken against a particular incident that happened for a target. For example, say one of your listener is down, and you can put a corrective action to bring it up automatically whenever you see a listener down incident. Right now we don't have any corrective actions set up for our OEM system. The next thing is the metric extension. So what is a metric extension? As I explained already, first you need to understand what is a metric. A metric is a type of statistics collected on a particular type of target. For example, for a database target, a tablespace uses or the number of Oracle errors logged into the alert.log, etc. are different type of metric. So when you think that a particular metric which is inbuilt or out of the box in OEM doesn't work for you and you want something extra, then you can create a metric extension. For example, there is no inbuilt metric for a backup failure happening in a database. And if you want to create a particular metric for a database failure, say whenever there are 3 consecutive archive log backup failure or a full backup failure, you should get an alert. In that case, you have to set a metric extension. Next is monitoring templates. So what is a monitoring template? So monitoring template is something through which you apply the monitoring options on a particular type of target. Say for a database instance, what are the different types of monitoring you want to put in place? Say you want to monitor the table space, you want to monitor the database up and down, you want to monitor the Aura errors logged into the alert log, etc. So all these things you can put into a template, and you can apply that template on all the database targets in your OEM, and that way you can also maintain a standard. Next thing is the template collection. So template collection is nothing but it's a collection of monitoring templates. Next, the job, and under job we have activity and library. So first we click on the library. So it is the library of all the jobs that is either inbuilt or you create in OEM to perform certain operation. So different types of jobs you can create. For example, it can be a OS command, it can be a RMAN command, it can be a SQL script. All these different types of jobs you can create in the OEM. And the other menu item, activity, will show you statistics on those particular jobs, when they ran, when they failed, when it is scheduled. Next, the reports. So information publisher reports is an inbuilt feature, but this is going to be deprecated and it is getting replaced by another feature in Oracle. It is called Oracle Analytics. So we will not discuss about this reporting feature here. Next, the configuration. These features we are not going to use, so we will not discuss it here. These features are not used very frequently, so we are not going to cover this in this series. Next, the compliance. For the compliant features, if you want to enable in the OEM, then you need to take a particular license called Lifecycle Management Pack, and under compliance, you can set up the policies and the standards of your organization across all your targets. For example, say you want to maintain a fast recovery area size of 100 gigs for all your production databases, or you want to maintain 5 redo log groups with 3 redo log members each across all your production databases, or if you want to maintain the user security using profiles in your all production databases, those are different types of standards and policies, and you can enforce them through the compliance framework. We are not going to cover this in this series. Then provisioning and patching. Provisioning and patching also requires the lifecycle management pack, and we are not going to cover this in this series. Just for your information, you can automate the provisioning and patching of different types of targets like the agent, the host, and the database instance, etc. through OEM. Now, as I mentioned the licensing part a couple of times, there is a feature in OEM itself which will tell you which particular feature requires what type of license through your OEM console itself. And we'll talk about that when we go to this setup menu. Next thing is the quality management. As a DBA, you might already know about the database replay or capture of workload, etc. So through this quality management, you can use that database replay or the workload capture, data modeling, and data masking, etc. And you can also integrate My Oracle support in your OEM system. So once you integrate it, you will be able to see the service requests, knowledge and certifications and community, etc. all these options through OEM. We are not going to cover these options here in this series. Then the cloud also we are not going to cover in this series. Migration and consolidation. This option we are not going to use in this series. Next is the target menu, and this menu covers specific features that can be applicable on targets. So first one, if you click on the all targets, this will give you all the targets available in your OEM system. You can sort them using target type or target name, etc. And also you can filter out different types of targets based on their name, their type, their status, etc. For example, if you want to just list out the listener targets, you can click on this listener and that will give you only the listener targets. Next one is the groups. So right now we don't have any groups created under OEM, so this will be empty. We are going to cover this item later on when we will be creating our target groups. Next, the systems. So what is a system? So it already describes what it defines as a system. A system is a collection of related manageable entities which together provide one or more business functions. For example, you can create a database system, and under that the listener, the database home, and the database instance, etc. will come. So when you say that the database system is down, it means at least one or all of the individual targets that I mentioned are down. Next is services. It's used to monitor a business process or an application. We will not cover that in this series. Next, the hosts. So hosts are nothing but the host targets here. And right now in our OEM system, we have only 2 hosts. And in this page, we will be able to see different incidents happening across the hosts and their CPU utilization, memory utilization, total IO per second. And also we have the option to run host commands. Next thing is the databases. So under that, we will be able to see all the databases in our, which are as our OEM targets. So right now, we have only 2 database targets or database instances that we can see here. And also we can see the related information like the target version, their status, and the incident, how many are critical, how many are warning, how many are fatal, etc. and the member status summary. And we will cover this in details later on. Next thing is middleware. Right now we have only one middleware system which belongs to the OEM itself, and we will not cover this in this series. And also business application and composite applications, we are not going to cover this in this series. Please note that this menu will expand when we are going to add new types of targets. For example, if you want to monitor Golden Gate targets, Exadata targets, or say you want to also monitor Oracle e-business suite targets, then when you will install the relevant plugins in your OEM system as well as in the target server or the agent, this menu item will expand and new items will be appearing below, like Exadata targets, Golden Gate, or e-business suite, etc. Next is the favorite menu. So this favorite menu is nothing but where you can add your favorite menu items. Say for example, instead of going to the main menu, then go to the sub menu and so on. If you want to add a particular page that you frequently visit in this OEM, then you can add that page to this favorites menu. For example, let's go to monitoring, then metric extension. If you want to add this page to the favorites, then all you need to do is to, once this page is available, go to the favorite and add pages to favorites, click on this menu item. Then this page will be added under this sub menu as metric extension under enterprise manager pages, something like that. So right now we don't want to keep it here, we'll simply remove it. And manage favorites, this you can use to manage your favorite pages. Then the history, this menu will give you the pages that you last visited. Then the setup menu, this is important. So first one, the initial setup console. So under this initial setup console, you will get a lot of options to configure when you initially set up your OEM system. For example, software library, OEM agent proxy settings, My Oracle support, Oracle management services, configuring mail services, MOS credentials, and creating users, creating roles, etc. All these things you can do from this central location. And we will cover some of these in the future tutorials in this series. Next one, add target. So add target gives you again many options like configure auto discovery results, add target manually, group, dynamic group, administration group, generic system, redundancy system, generic services. Now configure auto discovery, we have already talked about that. For example, when you install an agent, you can configure the auto discovery so that that agent can automatically discover relevant targets in that host. Next thing is the auto discovery results. So this page will actually give you the results of an auto discovery job on a particular server. So you can select a particular server and see what are the results of an auto discovery job, and you can take action accordingly. For example, if you want to promote one particular target that was discovered automatically, then you can do it from there. Then comes the add target manually. So we did it already in the second last tutorial, I believe, when we install an agent on the host. So we have options there like add host targets, add non-host targets using guided process, and add non-host targets manually. So we will cover these options in the future tutorials in this series. Then the group. If you click on the group, you will have options to create groups and group hierarchy, etc. And under a group, you can define the members. For example, you can create a database instance group and you can add all the individual database targets under that group. Again, you can create two different groups like production group or non-production group, and those two groups can be again added to a parent group like database instance group. We will cover this in the future. Then dynamic group. Dynamic groups are different than the normal groups. In dynamic groups, instead of adding the targets directly, we will define certain membership criteria, and whenever that criteria is met by certain targets, those targets are added to that dynamic group. We will not cover the dynamic groups in this series. Next is the administration group. Administration groups are used to fully automate your monitoring and management setup. We are not going to cover the administration groups in this series. Next comes the generic system, redundancy system, and generic service. These three we are not going to cover in this series. Then the extensibility. There are a couple of important features here. Self-update. So self-update is something through which your OEM system will automatically and internally update its components. For example, software library from My Oracle support. But that requires you to put your MOS credential. We will just cover the initial setup of this in the future tutorials. Next comes the plugins. So this page gives you the options to download different plugins from the MOS system. For example, if you want to monitor Golden Gate Target, that plugin is not automatically installed when you first time install the OEM system. So that plugin you have to download and deploy on your OMS as well as on the agent, and that can be done through this particular page. Next comes the management connectors, data exchange, and development kit. These three we are not going to cover in this series. Next is proxy settings. We are not going to cover this in this series. Next one is the security. So in the security console, you'll be able to see all of the security related features available to us. We are not going to cover the security console in this series. Then the administrators. This is important. There may be one or multiple administrators in your OEM system, and you can create, manage, or administer those administrators through this page. Next one is the roles. Roles are something where you can combine the privileges required to manage or administer a particular group of targets in OEM, and then you can assign that role to the group of administrators or users in your OEM system. Next one is the name credential. Name credential is something where you can save the credentials such as the username and password for a database or a host as a named object in the OEM credential store, and that is called a name credential. Then you can grant access on those name credentials to different users or administrators in your OEM system, and those administrators can perform certain activities even without knowing the actual credential. For example, you need to run certain operating system commands on a server, and to do that you need to log into the server using, say, a particular user and its password. So when you create named credential for that particular server or the host using the username and the password, that will be stored in OEM, and that name credential can be granted to other individual users who can use that credential to run that job in the server, but they don't know actually what is the username and password to log into that particular server to run that job. If you remember, we created two named credentials in the previous tutorials. One is using the Oracle user and other using the root user for the server named VM Linux 1, and that was a host named credential. Next one is the preferred credential. Preferred credential is something where you set the preferred credential for a particular type of target. Say for example, for a database host or a database instance, you can set the preferred credential. Whenever certain operations need to be done and you require a credential to do that, and if you want to automate running of that job through OEM, then OEM will pick up the preferred credential for that particular type of target. Next one, the monitoring credential. So monitoring credentials, these are actually already defined. For example, to monitor a database target, it's always DBA SNMP user for a normal database target. So if you want to see what are the users defined or the monitoring credentials, you can click on that particular target type and click on the manage monitoring credential. You'll be able to see what are the monitoring credentials defined here. You see that for this database target, the monitoring database credentials is using the DBA SNMP user, and for the database usage tracking credential, nothing has been set so far. Next one is the privilege delegation. Privilege delegation is something when the user used to log into a system cannot do specific tasks or jobs in that server, and they need additional privileges. For example, if you log into a database server as a normal user, it will not be able to shut down or start up the database because that requires the DBA privilege, which is already given to the Oracle user. Usually in a Unix server, this is the Oracle user who belongs to the DBA group as well as to the OInstall group, who is the owner of the Oracle installations. So a normal user needs to do a sudo to that particular Oracle user to perform those activities. In that case, where a normal user needs to do a sudo or switch user to a privileged user in the server, you have to set up the privilege delegation for that user in that particular server. We will cover this in the future tutorials. Next thing is the registration password. So the registration password is required to register the agent with the OMS system, and that you can define here. We will cover this in the future tutorials in this series. Next one is the audit data. We will not cover this in this series. Next is the incidents menu, and under that incident rules and job events. This is important. The incident rules are the rules that we are going to define to monitor our targets and take actions on certain types of alerts. This is a very important part in the OEM configuration to define the incident rules, and we will cover this in detail in the future tutorials in this series. We will not cover the job events. Next thing is the mail servers. Mail servers is the SMTP server that you configure in your OEM system so that the notification and alert emails can be sent from your OEM system. It is usually the SMTP server of your organization. But if you are setting up this OEM system for learning purpose, obviously you will not have an SMTP server. In that case, you can use Gmail or Yahoo SMTP servers to send email notification just to see how this setup works. We will cover this in detail in the future tutorials. Next, the email customization. This is nothing but how you can customize the email subject and the body for the email that is sent as a notification from your OEM system. We will cover this in future tutorials. Script and SNMP traps. This is something which can be set up and can be executed upon receiving certain conditions or alerts. This we will cover in the future tutorial. SNMP version 3 traps, we will not cover this. Global repeat settings. For example, say you are configuring the alerts for tablespace usage. If a tablespace is 85% used, then you want to send a warning alert. Now, upon detecting a situation where your tablespace is 85% full, OEM will repeatedly keep on sending the alerts until it detects that the underlying problem has been resolved. Now you need to define how many times that repeated email or notification will be sent. So for example, you want to set the repeat notification for 3 times, 2 times or 1 time, etc. Just to avoid any duplicate alerts, My notification schedule. This is something where the schedule of the notification can be set based on the active period of certain users. For example, for a 24/7 database administration team, not all the members work on the same time. Say in a 10-member team, 3 of the members work in the US hours, 3 of the members work in the APAC hours, say 4 of the members work in the UK hours. In that case, you can set up the notification schedule accordingly so that the notifications or alerts go to the appropriate people in the shift during the time when the alert or the notification or the incident happened. We will not cover this in detail. Provisioning and patching. Again, this requires additional licenses from Oracle, and we are not going to cover this in this series. Then My Oracle support. Here, you just need to set the credentials to configure your OEM with My Oracle support. We will briefly cover this in the future tutorials. Middleware management. We will not cover this in this series. Management of cloud control. The health overview. This is an important page where you will be able to see in one consolidated page lot of health related information of your OEM system, and from this page you'll be able to see lot of information on your OEM system, which gives you an overview of how your OEM system is performing. Next one is the repository. So repository is nothing but the database that we used for the repository of your OEM system, and this gives a lot of information about the repository database, like the table space growth, top 20 tables with unused space in repository, parse policies, top 20 large tables and indexes, etc. Next one is the agents, and so far we have installed only 2 agents, and we are able to see those 2 agents in this page. From this page you can do many administrative works on these agents. For example, you want to block one agent, you want to bring down one agent, you want to start up, shut down, restart, etc. Or even you can decommission the agent. Next one is the management server. Management servers, under this we can configure more than one management servers in your OEM system. For example, right now in our configuration we have only one management server, but in a massive system where there are thousands and thousands of database targets, one OMS system may not be enough to monitor, or even for manageability and load balancing purpose you may need 2 or more OMS. In that case, you can configure that under this page. Next one is the gold agent images. Gold agent images is something which is gold agent images. It's a group of agent images or software which can be used as a source of agent installation. We will not cover this in this series. Upgrade agent. When you upgrade your OEM system, say right now it is 13.5, say in the next couple of months Oracle releases a newer version of OEM like 13.6 or something, then you have to upgrade your OMS first, and then you have to upgrade your agents from the 13.5 to 13.6 version, and you can do that using the upgrades agent option. We will cover this in the future tutorials. Post upgrade tasks. If you have any post upgrade tasks for the agents and the OMS, you can do that through this post upgrade tasks option, and we will not cover this in this series. Then the job diagnostics. This also we will not cover in this series. Command line interface. We have already covered the command line interface, that is EMCLI, in our feature tutorial when we learned a couple of OMS and agent commands. So we will not cover again this command line interface here. Management packs. This gives us the license information, management pack access, and packs for this page, this option. And we will not cover the top 2 options here, but we will cover the last 2 options, packs for this page and enable annotations. Packs for this page is something which will tell you if there is any packs required from Oracle to be licensed to use a particular page. For example, if you go to say databases, does it require any particular packs or licenses from Oracle? That you can find out from here. When you are in that particular page, you go to setup, then go to packs for this page. If you click on that, then a message appears saying that this page does not require any packs. So the license information you can get from there. Anyway, it is saying that it doesn't require any pack. But if you go to say a particular option that I mentioned earlier, for example compliance, we click on the compliance dashboard, and then we go to packs for this page, we'll be able to see that it requires a lot of packs or licenses. This page requires either of the following packs. It's giving us the list of all the packs required and also the license information. So we will not cover this in detail in this series. Now enable annotations. If you enable annotations, it will give you some idea about what packs are used on a particular feature or a menu item. Say, let me enable annotations, and then we'll be able to see some additional information in each of the menu items. And under monitoring, I can see that the logs required SOAM, IDM, COHMP, PD, etc. These are nothing but the abbreviations of certain packs from Oracle. For example, this configuration, if you see DBLM, it is the Database Lifecycle Management. OBIM, this is Oracle Business Intelligence Mobile. WLSEE is the WebLogic Server Enterprise Edition, etc. Next one is the Export EM data to OCI. This particular option we will not use and we will not cover in this series. Now under SYSMAN menu, we have the help menu, which I don't have to explain, the welcome page. This is something where you can configure your welcome page when you log into your OEM system. For example, in my case, I have configured the database. If you want, you can configure the summary or any other pages. Next one is the notification center, where you will see all the notifications in your OEM system. Right now we have not configured anything and this page is blank. We will cover this in the future tutorials. Entitlement summary, we will not cover this in this series. Set current page as my home page. This is used to set a particular page as your home page, and I don't have to explain this. Enterprise manager password and email. This is to set the password for SYSMAN user, and we have already changed the SYSMAN user password in the last tutorial, where I explained how we can use the command line utility to change the SYSMAN password, because changing the SYSMAN password is not a straightforward activity in OEM. And you can specify email addresses here to send notification. We will not use this email notification mechanism. Instead, we'll be using our incident rules, where we will define the emails. Next, the preferences, system broadcast, SSA portal settings, projector color contrast. These three things we are not going to cover in this tutorial. About enterprise manager and logout. Now, as we covered all the items under the main menu, now we will go to the target menu. To go to the target menu, let's first select one particular target, and when we click on a target, it will first take us to the home page of that particular target. Now when we selected the database type targets, the target menu is automatically enabled. Now we can see that we have certain options available under this target menu, but these options will be even more when we will select a particular target. For example, let's click on this ORCL1 database target, and we'll be able to see more options there now. So right now we are in the home page of the ORCL1 database target, and let's see what are the menu and items available under those menus. For example, the first one, Oracle database. So it is telling that the target we selected is the Oracle database type target, and it has the home page, or you can open the home page in a new window, and there are certain monitoring configuration available, the metrics, metric collection and setting, metric collection errors so far, status history, incident manager, alert history, and blackouts. These all items are available and specific to this particular database target only. We will cover this in detail in this series. Next, the diagnostic, support workbench, database instance health. We will cover the database instance health in the future tutorials, but we will not cover the support workbench. Next, the control. Using these control submenu items, we can control the type of target that we selected. For example, if we want to shut down or start up the database instance, we can do that. We can create a blackout, we can end a blackout, create a notification blackout, and end a notification blackout. A full blackout and a notification blackout is different by nature. We will cover this in future tutorials. Then the job activity, this menu items will give us the job activity for the job specific to this particular database target. Information publisher report, as I already explained, we are not going to cover this because this feature is going to be deprecated. Members, we are not going to cover this in this series. Logs will give us the logs related to this database target. For example, if we want to take a look the alert log contents, we can do that from there. And specifically, if we want to see the alert log errors, you can get it from there. And also you can do the archive or parsing activity on the alert log. If the alert log is growing very big, it's a periodic activity to parse the older entries in the alert log, which you can do it from here. And also you can take a look in the trace files. Then provisioning. This again requires certain licenses where you can do provisioning of databases. So you can create a provisioning profile from the selected database target, and that provisioning profile can be used to provision newer databases. Then you can create a database template. Then also you can clone the database home, upgrade Oracle database and home, etc. We will cover some of these features in this series, but not all of them. Then cloning. This is about cloning a database. Create a full clone, a test master, or you can create a clone DB. We will cover some of these features in the future tutorials. Migration, we will not cover. Configuration, we will not cover. Compliance, we will not cover in this series. Then target setup. Under this, you'll be able to see the Enterprise Manager users which are entitled for this particular database target. If you click on that, right now, you see that there are only 2 users which are by default created. We have not created any more users here. And we will cover some of this in the future tutorials. Then comes the monitoring configuration. This is important. If you want to change or reconfigure a particular target, then you can do that using this particular page. For example, if you change the DBAs NMP user password, then you need to reconfigure the target, and you can do that in this page by changing the monitoring password here. Similarly, say your listener port has changed from 1521 to 1522, then you can do that in this particular box. Then you click next and save the configuration. We'll cancel it now. Administrator access, we will not cover this. Remove target, it's nothing but deleting or decommissioning the particular target. Add to group, this is to add a particular target to a group we define. For example, you want to add all the database targets to a particular group called database group, then you can do that from here. Then properties. Here you can define certain properties of the target. For example, any comments, who is the contact person for this particular database, what is the cost center, customer support identifier, what department that database belongs to, downtime contact, all these things you can define here. Next one is the target sitemap. We will not cover this. Then target information. This is nothing but the properties that you define for the target. The next menu item is the performance home. This is very important. The performance home page is the page where you will get all the performance related statistics of this database target. If you see this DD, it's because we have enabled the annotation. I'll just go to the setup, management packs, and we'll click on the enable on it annotation. It is a toggled item, so this time we will not see this DD within bracket in this menu item. So if we click on the performance home, it will give us all the performance related statistics of this database. But to do that, first we need to log in. We log in as system user. We'll see the performance home page of this database, and it gives us the average runnable processes, average active sessions, and many more information related to the throughput, IO, parallel execution services, etc. And also you can create an ADDM report or ASH report, and even you get more granular reports from here on the CPU threads, CPU cores, etc. We will cover this in detail in future tutorials. Then the performance hub, under this you will get the ASH analytics and SQL monitoring. Both these options are important. We will cover this in detail. Let's for example go to SQL monitoring. You'll be able to see the top SQLs running, but in our database right now nothing is going on, so this list is actually empty. But if you see in the previous period there was some spikes there, and now we can see the details of the SQL statements running during that period and their resource uses, runtime, planned hash value, etc. We will cover this in detail in future tutorials. Now the SQL, under this menu we get a lot of options about SQL. All these options we will cover in future tutorials in detail. Then the AWR. So here in OEM you can extract an AWR report for a particular database target. You don't have to go to the server or you don't have to run the awr rpt.sql in the command prompt to extract the AWR reports. You can do it from here. We will cover this in the future tutorial. And also you can do AWR administration, like you can create a snapshot, delete a snapshot, etc. Then also you can extract compare period ADDM from this. You can create compare period reports and also AWR warehouse. This is something we will cover in the future tutorials. AWR warehouse is nothing but a separate database where you can dump all the AWR reports from different database targets and keep it for longer period of time for your analysis or comparison. For example, usually we keep the AWR reports in the AWR repository or in the CSOX table space of a particular database certain period of time, say 1 month or 15 days, etc. But if you want to keep it for a very long time, like 1 year or 2 years, it is not suggested to keep it inside the database in CSOX table space. In that case, you can create a AWR warehouse database and you can manage the AWR warehouse database from OEM. Now, advisor homes, this will give us the advisories that are available to us in the field of performance tunings. And you see that a lot of options are available there. Now, real-time ADDM, we are not going to cover in this series. Search session, this is nothing but searching for a particular session in this database target using the SID. Next one is the blocking session. This is very useful feature. When there are database blocks, one session is blocking other sessions due to its uncommitted DML transactions. You can get the details about those blocking sessions in this page, and you can also take action on them, like killing those sessions. Next one is the availability. The first one is MAA advisor, that is the maximum availability architecture advisor. We will not cover MAA advisor in this series. Backup and recovery. This has a lot of submenus here, like scheduling a backup, manage current backups we will cover, backup reports we will cover, configure Oracle Cloud Backup we will not cover, restore points we will cover, perform recovery we will not cover, backup settings, recovery settings, and recovery catalog settings we will cover this. Then add a standby database. As a DBA, you might already know how to create a standby database in command prompt or using a duplicate database command. But it is also possible to create a standby database using OEM. In fact, it's very easy to create a standby database using OEM, and we will cover that in this series in a future tutorial. Now, security. There are a lot of security related activities and options available. You can go to security home, you can get security reports, then users, roles, profiles, audit settings, a lot of things are there. We will cover some of them in the future tutorials, but we will not cover application data modeling, configuration compliance, data masking and subsetting, data redaction. We will not cover this in this series, but I will have separate tutorials outside of this series to cover these topics. Schema. Under schema menu for this database target, we see the users, database objects, programs, etc. So users are nothing but the users in this database, and the database objects are the tables, indexes, views, and other objects in this database. Then the programs are the PL/SQL procedures, functions, triggers, etc., which are available in this database. Then materialized views, materialized view logs, refresh groups, and dimensions, etc. Then user-defined types, database export import, change management, and under that you get the transport table space, export to export files, import from export files, import from database. A lot of options are there. We usually do not use the export import activity in the OEM, and we will not cover this in this series. Change management, then data comparisons, schema change plans, schema baselines, schema comparisons, schema synchronizations. We will rarely use these features in the OEM, and I am not going to cover this in this series. XML database, similarly, we will not cover this in this series. Then comes the administration. The first item is the initialization parameters. This is nothing but you can take a look at all the initialization parameters for this particular database target or whatever database target you are currently working on, and you can also make changes to the parameters here. And you have the option to take a look at the SP file also, and where you can make the change and click on the apply button to apply the changes the next time when the database restarts. Then comes the in-memory central. We are not going to cover this. Under storage, we have a lot of options available like information lifecycle management, compression, database file systems, control files, data files, etc. etc. Out of this, we will cover some of them. For example, how you can extend a table space or add a data file, etc. or monitor your database file systems. Then comes the Oracle scheduler, where you can monitor the scheduled jobs and the programs and the windows from this database target. We will cover some of this in the future tutorials. Replication, we will not cover replication in this series. Migrate to ASM, we will not cover this in this series. Resource manager, this is related to performance, and we will cover this in the future tutorials. So this is all for today, and I was just trying to give you an overview of the menu items in the OEM 13.5 console. As I mentioned earlier, we will go deeper into the items when we will actually cover the features they represent in the coming tutorials, and we will talk on the items which will be most useful for us while working with OEM. But don't worry, I will have separate videos to cover those topics which we are not covering in this series. And with this, I am concluding today's tutorial. So viewers, I hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful. Please hit the like button if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel so you won't miss an episode in this series for the Oracle DBAs or similar educational videos that I am uploading every week.